Hello, friends, and welcome to the Union Labor Advisory Network. I'm Mike Fina. Today, I'm extremely proud and privileged to have Mayor Dahlia Vertreese from Hillside Township on with us today to learn a little bit more about her background, history, and experience, and what she's doing in her community. I know she's got a great background in the labor world as well. So excited to have you on, Mayor Vertreese. Because I know your background as you know, it is deeply rooted in public service, from labor relations to education, and maybe you could share with the audience, your background and how your passion for serving the community.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, and thank you for having me on. I'm honored and privileged to even be interviewed and be able to tell my story. There are so many interesting people that we work with, and they don't often get there to tell their story. So I'm just privileged to be here with the interview and just to share it with all of our labor brothers and sisters and anyone who's interested in the labor movement. This is an awesome opportunity, and thank you for even doing this. As far as my background, my mom and dad were both first responders. My father was a police officer in Newark. My mom, she was a nurse, and then she moved up into hospital administration in Newark, and then she finished her career in Brooklyn Hospital, and I believe at Brookdale Hospital. So I had a very, very busy household that was committed to community service, meeting people where they are. My mother had me volunteering in clinics as a kid. So I saw and helped people who were suffering from HIV when people were afraid to talk about HIV or talk to people with HIV. Every Christmas, before we could even open up any gifts, my father was a 3-term president of an organization called the Bronze Shield. And every Christmas morning, since I can remember, we woke up early and we gave out Christmas gifts to kids whose parents were either recently released or incarcerated, or people that they knew needed help. So it wasn't like given to often with a lot of these drives, you give to the greedy and not the needy. Well, these individuals and these kids were definitely needy. And I got to a place, I think, where materialism just wasn't that important to me. It was, because none of this stuff belongs to us. Like, we could talk about home ownership, but someone will be in this home when I'm gone and dead. Your car could get, trashed outside. And so having those experiences as a little kid, I really don't, I guess I don't value um, opulence like that. I think that, especially when people are poor and they're struggling and they're hungry, when you step up in a leadership position, those are the people that you have to see first. Those are the people that you have to address first, and then help people understand why they can't have so much. So that was my background growing up. I went to the University of Arkansas for school, and I definitely had a different experience there. And then started working in labor relations in a big box store where it was like anti-union everything. And, being from New Jersey, it really freaks me out because it was, people really sipped the Kool-Aid about labor unions being a bad thing. And meanwhile, we're working, 10 hours a day, which is what they call like the sundown rule. Like, you can't leave until the sun goes down. Well, if you give me, 50 projects and I only get 25 done, you're saying I have to stay at work until they're done? That's really weird. And when we talk about, like, understanding race in America, like, calling a rule a sundown rule is not, doesn't make me want to stay late for work.
Exactly. You're not so motivated in that regards, right? Yeah.
So then I moved back to New Jersey and started working for the Newark Public Schools. And then my father passed away, and I needed to get more of like that grassroots, touch people again experience. So I brought my degree in history and sociology to the classroom, taught the kids, and then still just couldn't help myself. I'm one of those people that no matter where I am, I become like the big mouth in the room, and I'm gonna say something like there's something wrong about this. There's this little voice in the back of my head that's like, you got to do something about this. So if you're religious, I could say like God. And I even have this joke about God, like he's the friend. I always call him like the friend that's like, no, you got to do something about this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do anything about it. He's like, no, you got to do something about this. And
On
then
your
he like
shoulder, right?
pushes
Just
you.
saying it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he just like pushes you in the fight, and then you like swinging just to protect yourself. So I always find myself in that position. And then once I decided to transition back out of the classroom, I went back to the building trades, which was Local 68, the International Union of Operating Engineers, which is how I got back into my labor field, but then became a labor candidate, and then ultimately became the mayor of Hillside.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then from the trades, take us through the process too, because I know you had a long history with the operating engineers, Local 68. Like, how did that transition into a public a career as mayor, like but getting back into servicing the communities, from operating engineers to the mayor of Hillside?
Yeah, so I got there because Mr. Giblin, Tom Giblin, who's our business manager, he hired me to be the labor relations specialist for the union. But I would also take him to Trenton because he was also an assemblyman. And he used to always say, like, just sit back and you'll learn something. Like, just sit back and you'll learn something. When I was initially hired with the building trades, I did the AFL-CIO labor candidate school, the institute at the Rutgers Learn program. And I wasn't quite sure why I was there, but I scored really, really high. They were really, really excited about me running for office. And I was just like, well, I never said I was running for office. I don't know what you guys are talking about. So here I am, multiple hats. I'm organizing like a unit in Irvington, and I'm driving not at the same time, but I'm driving him down to Trenton. He's in session. I'm like on my computer sending emails, like doing the labor work. But then I'm also simultaneously like hearing things that are going on. And so we would get back in the car and I'm like talking to him in the car as I'm driving. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense because they didn't consider this legislation and this legislation. And then I would say abuse Mr. Giblin. Like Mr. Giblin, I think is like 73, 74. And I would play like hip hop songs. And I'm like, do you hear like this like political message? You understand that this stuff is still going on? And then I would turn around and like play Steve Colbert to him in the car. So it was just like a really wonderful experience. And so he kind of was like, well, you have so much to say, like run for office. Like you're always like I even gave him some stuff to put in his speeches and things to think about because I'm a history teacher. Like I'm always going to be a history teacher and I know labor history. So I was like, we'd be on our way to driving talking about like maternal child health or diabetes or asthma or something. I'm like, yeah, well, remember when this happened? And then, Mr. Giblin, his history and his knowledge, especially in New Jersey, is unparalleled. Like he could tell you where somebody lived 40 years ago, how many people they had in their family, how many brothers and sisters. So you can only imagine what the conversation was like with me and him in the car. And but ultimately I ran for I was appointed to the school board, and then I ran for school board, and then I was elected president by my colleagues, and then did a really good job. And before I knew it, it was time to run for mayor. And there were other people who were going to run for mayor. It wasn't my dream initially to be the mayor. I kind of went into a little depression because I was like, I like school board, Plus, I had my teaching background. So I knew pedagogy and I knew the labor portion and actually helped some people get their unions because they were trying to union bust. And I was like, no, I'm on the board. I can't do that. They're gonna organize and they're gonna get their union together. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Calm down. But then I ran for mayor and I won by 6 votes. And so when people say that their vote doesn't matter,
Yep.
I'm like, tell that to somebody like me. I've had people in my life lose by 11 votes, 16 votes. And I will say the smaller your community, the more your vote counts, like the more important it is.
Yep. How big is the township of Hillside right now? I guess as mayor, is it?
It's 2.7 square miles. Some people say 2.6, but 2.6, 2.7 square miles. We have about 23,000 residents that we know of. And I say that we know of because everybody doesn't answer their census.
Yep.
and the math doesn't math when it comes to resources that we have to shell out. So we think 23,000 people.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, Dahlia, Mayor Vertreese, your background in labor, and we talk about education. How important is it for local governments and unions to work together to provide educational opportunities like apprenticeships for the younger people, younger generation? And we talked about this before. My 20 years as a banker, but just serving the labor space and seeing these career opportunities within these apprenticeships, it's so inspiring to me. And I know macro big picture, another dues paying member into a local is the future generation of these particular pensions opportunities and really skilled trades. And
Mm-hmm.
love to see how you elaborate on that a little bit more as well, because in your position today.
Absolutely. I think there needs to be more exposure in underrepresented communities like mine. Um, there needs to be more exposure to what a labor person looks like, right? Because if we're left with the marketing tools of what they look like, a lot of the images don't look like me. They don't you don't think that the guy next door is a union guy because a lot of times they're not wearing union stuff all the time. They're wearing their uniforms, they're wearing their hard hats or whatever, and they're just going to work. They're not really exposing the kids to what it means to be in a labor union. And it's not just you go and you pick up your tools and you do your job and you go home. It may be like that for some people, but a lot of people don't understand that the unions are an entire organization. Many of us are a network of organizations. We invest money into our representatives, into social initiatives. And a lot of that stuff is just glossed over when it comes to how important unions are, especially when it comes to our young people. The other thing that I would love to see is more of us volunteering in the classroom, not just for like career day, but helping kids. One of the things that's missing is, remember when we were young, kids built tree houses. They built the little cars, the little go-karts. They were very hands-on with certain things. And that creativity is being usurped by electronics and computers. The kids are just not interested in a lot of manipulatives and hands-on anymore. And it's making it harder for us in the apprenticeship programs because, this might be the first time that they're actually trying to fit something together or use a certain tool. They don't even know what a screwdriver is. I had a guy come to DPW tell me he had never painted a wall before. He didn't even know how to paint.
Right.
And so these are just fundamental skills that I think we take for granted, but that our kids, our youngsters really need to start thinking about, and how that relates to geometry, right? And start to put more of those crafts and that trades mindset into our STEM programs. It's not just about formulas and computers and, getting the right answer. A lot of times, physics is all about if you can mathematically do it in your head, if it
Yep.
makes sense. Because sometimes you can have so much book knowledge that common sense goes out the window. And because you didn't use common sense, the building still falls. And you're like, oh, but I did all this math and it should have worked. And it's like, no, you should have put another beam there because XYZ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that lack of conversation and connection, especially with the earlier ages, is what we definitely need for the future.
Yeah.
And I will also say, and I'm sorry, and I'll also say, even as we start to talk about climate change and this investment in clean energy and solar power, and there's so many different things that we could do for our infrastructure, innovative ideas, since they're interested in the computers and stuff anyway. Like ideas as far as fixing our dilapidated and old pipes, a better way to see what's going on under our sewer systems, better ways to clean our waterways. But we need to help. They care about that. The young kids care about climate change more so than the older ages. And so we can really bring them in if on the building trade side, we start to incorporate some of that knowledge over here as well.
Yeah, Mayor Vertreese, like we mentioned before, I had the privilege just of meeting and knowing a lot of different building and construction trades and going through these training facilities, and how they're incorporating virtual reality into today's building trades to, like, I guess, entice or get people excited about some of these particular careers, because if they're on their phones and playing video games all day, like the Tetrises of the world, or like these virtual worlds that you're creating and building, now you can apply some of those skills into real life work opportunities.
Absolutely.
And seeing that in the next generation of the Gen X apprentices that are out there, it's really exciting for me. I mean, I'm just watching some of the emergence of that and the technology starting to integrate in there, and it's
Right.
for me, I just love it. I mean, it makes me really excited, and it's things that we want to educate our communities about, like you're doing as well. And I know I took
Right.
some notes here too. I want to say your collaboration with Bloomfield College to offer full scholarships to Hillside high school students, fantastic initiative. And do you see more programs like this shaping the future workforce and creating more access to careers in public service as well as union trades?
Yeah. So, Bloomfield College was interesting. It's now been annexed by Montclair State. But the beautiful thing about Bloomfield College is that they had one of the highest rates of upward mobility. So the kids that actually went to Bloomfield College came out better career-wise than when they went in, and had actually moved up even past some of their parents, because they have more of those hands-on lived experience career paths that, and they also wouldn't get lost. So Bloomfield College is not very large, but the kids were not getting lost. They got the attention that they needed. And it spoke to me as a labor person, because that's what we do. We take people that may not have the best background or may not have a whole lot of money, and we expose them to not just a better career, but better health care, a pension, an annuity, like just things that their parents just did not have, that can then transition into their children and having a better path. But more so, like the education that unions provide as well. And because a lot of, I mean, not to brag, but a lot of our people make a lot of money, I always say, college is a business. It's always going to be there. And while it might be right based on a mindset of the child that they need to go straight into college and finish, if you aren't really excited, if it's not moving your emotional needle right now to go into college, go into the trades, get your career. College will always be there. Like, find something that you really want to do. And I always talked about lived experiences. You can bring those lived experiences in the trades as a tradesperson. Find something that you want to invest in if you decide you want to get a college degree, and then really build that out. Like, we talked about virtual reality. We talked about, things like even transportation. Transportation in New Jersey is in dire need of assistance with AI, STEM, mechanics, plumbers, trades. The transportation system as a whole is in need of some of that new innovative energy and outside of the box thinking. And so I think that having that partnership with a lot of these smaller local colleges would definitely help some of our apprenticeship programs, and then just make sure that the kids can pay for the college, because college today is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about that before, and to get paid to learn a trade, like that's just
Right.
an incredible opportunity as well. And like you mentioned, you could always, if college is not for you today, or you don't see a career in, or just doesn't get you that excited, you could always do that online. The world, unfortunately, COVID transitioned people a lot into the virtual or like online world, and
Right.
academics is there for people to take online, but also have that experience as college, so you get to meet and network and just learn how to work with people as a whole.
Right.
But there's one thing I want to mention as well, and I had some notes here too. The designation of Hillside as an opportunity zone opens up doors for economic development? And how can union labor play a role in building and sustaining economic growth within the community?
So definitely making sure that any new and innovative build, because the township really hasn't been touched in like 50 years. We have a lot of dilapidated buildings. We have a lot of work that needs to be done in our infrastructure. And of course, Rome wasn't built in a day. So as we're building new libraries, as well, we are building a new library, we have a pool being built. So as we're starting to rebuild the township, having that partnership, making sure that our union is represented as much as we can, because people forget that we are a small town. So we don't have millions and millions of dollars to necessarily honor like a PLA to the uptake degree, but we have had projects in town that have been union friendly.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So for example, Union Beverage is here in Hillside, and that's White Claw, and they built like a lot of the soft drinks for 7-Eleven, and it's Mark Anthony Brewing, and they built their project, their factory. I think it was 90% union.
It's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And Mayor Vertreese, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of Hillside in terms of economic development, education, and career opportunities in the public sector, as well as union trades? How do residents get involved? How to support that vision?
So let me tell you, getting residents involved is very difficult. COVID even made that even more difficult. I have been, the moniker for the township is building connections for our future together. And that means making sure that on the local level, we have connections with the state as well as the federal level to try to receive or get as much money as we can for a lot of our projects that are economic and social. So, for example, we want to build this pool, and the pool, like all of our pools, are shutting down. They're everywhere across the state. Everybody's closing their pools because they're loss leaders. You don't make money off a pool. That it is, anybody that owns a pool personally, it is a luxury item, and it's not something that you need. You only buy one if you're not going to have to use your mortgage to get it, right? Well, it's the same for any municipality. So if you build a pool, it has to pay for itself. The problem with that is that with all of these municipalities and counties shutting down their pools, we're also losing lifeguards. So every summer, we don't have lifeguards to mind the beaches and the existing pools. More and more children don't know how to swim. We don't have, open free swim programs. And I believe this summer, another youngster just passed away, just not knowing how to swim and being in a community pool. And I think that if we're going to have these connections, those lived experiences need to transmute into legislation, which sets aside money for programs like that help kids with enrichment and personal protection and abilities so that it can be transitional into a job. So a lifeguard may not pay $1 million, but it's a summer job, and it's something that's desperately needed. But the more and more we start to divest in something like a swimming pool or community pool, the less and less we're going to see of those programs, and the less and less safe people are going to be in general to get in the water. Now, that's just one example. My vision for the township is to continue to grow programs that give back to the community in that way. So the library will be a 21st century library. It's not just going to be books and some lady telling you to be quiet. No, I expect that library to be interactive. I expect it to be a quasi community center. I expect you to be able to have your business out of that library. You can rent a conference room, and you don't have a brick and mortar anymore, but you have the space and the electronic capability to converse with people across the world and get your business done and go home. So those are the kinds of projects that I want to continue to invest in Hillside. I definitely need more climate friendly, because a lot of our stuff is old, asbestos is everywhere. We've done a lot of remediation projects, but we definitely need help moving forward with solar energy, e-cars, sustainable sewage systems. And again, that's not going to be completed, in 1 term or 2 terms, because we need more technology as it pertains to that. And then, of course, through my community, I just want to see more people showing up. I think that's the key to any community, and definitely leadership. There's so many things that I don't necessarily want to go to, but I'm like, I have to show up. Like, even if you don't want to, you have to show up. And that's just a part of discipline. And if you're going to live here, and there are programs that you're interested in, or you should be interested in, try your best to come out and support your neighbors, get to know your neighbors. That's the only way you keep the community safe. And then, of course, overall beautification of the community. I'd like to see more bike lanes in the township. But those are my big issues right now, is my sewer system, the flood zones, the climate change. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot, like there's a lot of work to be done, but it can't be done without collaboration and support with the bigger groups, right? And working to network like you are, because from the beginning of our conversation, like you mentioned, you have the mouth, you like to talk, you like to be out there, and having those traits and qualities to be able to fight for or support some of these initiatives is a great trait to have, right? We have to have
Right.
that.
Well, listen, my dad, he used to tell me all the time, he's like, it doesn't matter where someone is in life. They have something to teach you. They've gone through something that you have not gone through, and they can help you in some crazy way. He was like, you can even learn from like the worst people, right? And then I learned recently, like even the greatest people can come from the most toxic relationships.
Yeah.
So, talk to people, build those connections, because you never know how they can help you and what they know about community and government. And you can make those little connections. I do it all the time. Wait, you do this? You have that? Let me put you in touch with this person because I need this. And that's supposed to be how humanity works, right? Symbiotic relationship. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And Mayor Vertreese, we got connected through two good friends in labor as well. When we talk about before, Craig Ford, 1199J, and Anthony Abronte is at the Labor Day parade was a
that's
few
right.
weeks back. I mean, it is through connections and collaboration that Craig was like, "You got to meet, Dahlia. You got to talk to her." And then all of a sudden, boom, here we are today talking, and then finding some of those common grounds and learning about your background and experience within operating engineers and now as the mayor is really inspiring. One, to me, and to get to know you as well and understand what your values are is just, makes me feel proud to know that you are in labor and you're fighting
Yes.
a good fight to help support other people, which is really, I'm so happy to have you on. And I know we will be working together in the future in some way, shape, or
Absolutely.
form.
And don't forget, I'm still a labor relations specialist. Like, a lot of elected officials don't make a lot of money. That's not, so I still work for my union,
Abs-
and it keeps me grounded. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say learning from so many different people. Again, I've been such a good fortune to learn from so many different trades, both on the public sector as well as the building trades, seeing these opportunities and learning. And
Yes.
we talked about before some of these particular programs for veterans or even pre-apprenticeship, all these initiatives to help support the next generation of tradespeople, men and women, just to
Absolutely.
make sure that we get that message out there. Department of Veteran Services and some of these helmets to hard hats programs to get veterans into career opportunities is really the mission of ULA, and really to support these economic job creation, because my past background as a banker, like we talked about before,
Yeah.
we got to feed and grow these particular memberships, these communities and people that have like minds to really support the next generation or our lives, together. Everybody's got to be able to make it
Absolutely.
survive and live in their homes and not outside their homes.
Yeah.
And the world it's a crazy world out there, but we just connect with the right people, use our resources as you are And I'm just excited to have you on today. And I just want to thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Mike. I appreciate it.
Oh, without a doubt. And then, at the end of this too, I'm sure I'll have awesome context and information on how people can get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
And we'll have some socials and put that on all our social media platforms as well. So,
All right.
Mayor Vertreese, thank you so much. I want you to have a great weekend, and I'm sure we'll be in contact, in the future.
Indeed. Thank you, Mike.
You got it. You got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. All right. I'd like to thank all our sponsors for helping to build and promote the ULA Network. It is because of you that we're able to support, educate, and promote informative content relevant to labor. Please subscribe, like, and share our channel and media. I'd like to thank you all for your support.